we start, Auburn's 3 turnovers ties the school record for fewest turnovers in a game. So with that, I'll turn it over to Coach for an opening statement.
Once again, just got to thank our fans. Another unbelievable environment, another unbelievable crowd. It makes all the difference in the world. We're down 14 with 9 minutes left in the game, and having a full house gives our guys the confidence and the courage to be able to find ways to chip away and get back into that game. So, coming into the game, I think Texas averaged 7 made threes a game, and they made 8 in the first half. And Dalen Swain, I think, was 3 for 3 at halftime or 4 for 4, and he shoots 27% from 3. Those are the shots we wanted them to take. We wanted them to take threes. We don't want Cam Heide, who shoots 50% from 3, to make 5 out of 6. That was on us. But I thought the rest of those guys, we wanted those guys to take contested threes, and to their credit, they made them. If you had told me before the game that they were going to make 12 threes, I don't know if we have I'm not sure if we win that game. I can tell you one thing for certain: our team a month ago would not have won that game with Texas making 12 threes. Coming at halftime, offensively in the first half, we were really not sloppy, but we just didn't execute well. Our spacing was really bad, and they did a really good job early of plugging gaps and doing a good job of guarding without fouling at the rim. And it led to us taking some really tough contested twos, and we were looking for whistles, and instead of just going to score through contact. At halftime we get in there, and I'm like, guys, we should be down 20 right now, just based on how we played offensively and how well they played in the first half. To only be down 8, was huge. It felt a lot like Missouri. They made 7 threes in the first half on shots we wanted them to take. We just didn't respond well at Missouri. We just didn't come out with a lot of fire. We did a really good job, early in the second half. We cut the lead to 3. They then extend it back to 8. We get into a timeout, and, we had to figure out if we were going to bend, not break. And our guys hung in there and just kept chipping away. And I thought in the second half, Mike did a great job. Coach Burgermaster did a great job of just putting us in spaces where we could drive those guys and they wouldn't be able to help nearly as much. And, obviously Key and KO had a lot of step up in that second half and made a lot of really big shots. And we did a really good job of attacking them and not looking for fouls and forcing them to foul us, leading us to be able to go to the line 28 times in the second half and making 22 of them. So, I thought our guys hung in there, found a way to beat a really good Texas team. This one, I was really worried about this game. Obviously coming off of 3, two really good road wins, understanding how dangerous that team is, especially when they play really well in big games. And we were able to find a way to, grind out a win, and, proud of the guys. So take any questions.
Stephen, y'all almost averaged 2 points of possession in the second half. Just for it to be that clean after, like you said, how sloppy it was in the first half. Just what did that say about kind of the guys kind of resetting and refocusing out there?
Yeah, I think Mike made a lot of really nice adjustments in that at halftime. And one of the things that we saw was that they were putting a lot of bodies on Keyshawn Hall. So we wanted to feed him early and kind of go through him, and it helped that obviously he made a couple shots early to kind of get us going. But if they were going to put that many guys on him, it was going to let other people be open, and KO was the recipient of a lot of that. Because it wasn't off of Keyshawn Hall's first pass, it was the swing after the first pass, because they were then in rotation and were able to get shots. So I thought Mike did a phenomenal job of making some halftime adjustments and putting us in sets that really took advantage of how they wanted to guard. In the first half, we didn't do a very good job of spacing them out. Second half, we did a much better job. And we got bailed out by 2 of our best players. So Key and KO were phenomenal.
Stephen, you talk about the sellout crowd and giving your guys the confidence, but it seemed like that was the most interactive you've been with the crowd tonight. Just how much do you yourself feed off of that energy?
I'm not sure I feed off of it, but I know our players do. So, it helped us in the second half, because every time we're trying to get them up on their feet, our guys stepped up and made plays. And, I think it's just something that our guys really, really love. And, it makes all the difference in the world. So, if I'm going to continue to do it, because I think it helps us. And our guys responded well to it. And, it allowed us the opportunity to find a way to win that game. So just grateful, very grateful for our students and our fans that come out every single night and support this team.
Coach, we talk so much about KO and how much of an impact he makes defensively, but how different is your team when he has a night like tonight on the offensive end of the floor? How different can you guys be when he plays the way he did on that end of the floor?
Yeah, it's huge. KO gets a really bad technical foul in the first half, and, out of frustration. And, KO in the past would have had a hard time responding from that. And, I said, KO, we don't do that. And he looked at me and said, you're right. And then, the next possession, I said, hey, go pat him on the butt and say you're sorry. He went over there patting the guy, and Vlad responded really well to it. And that's not always the case with officials. Like, sometimes when you MF them like that, you're done. But I thought that crew did a great job of moving on to the next play and not letting it impact their whistle as the game went on. And then KO is able to come back and, obviously play really well offensively. So when he makes shots, our offense is way different. We don't win tonight if him and Key don't make 8 threes. He's capable of doing that, and I know it's in there. But, I don't think we necessarily needed it in the last 3 games because we did have an advantage driving it to the rim. And, tonight we kind of took what the defense gave us, and, we went 11 for 21 from 3, and we took a lot of good ones. So we only took like 1 or 2 bad ones in this game. And obviously, really happy that Murph banked his in. That was kind of huge.
Coach, 4 straight SEC wins. Now that you've got about 2/3 of the season in the books here, can you talk about what you're learning as a first-year head coach? And, how has the beginning of SEC play to now changed for you in terms of how you motivate your team and prepare your team?
Yeah, I think, first, Mike, just trying to stay consistent. Even when you have 2 devastating losses, I got to do what I do in my preparation and not change. I'm going to be just as positive and just as hungry and just as humble as I am then as I will be now that we've won 4 in a row. And I think, for me, I think my guys have responded pretty well to me being a little more fiery in our huddles and our talks about what we got to do to win games. I told our guys those last 3 games aren't going to make shots. Those last 3 games aren't going to get any rebounds. Those last 3 games aren't going to play any defense. We got to do that tonight. And, for the most part, I thought we did. So for me, it's just, just trying to stay consistent in my routine. And I know I say it a million times and you're probably tired of hearing it, but you can't get too high, you can't get too low. The best piece of advice I've ever gotten, it's never as bad as you think it is, but it's also never as good as you think it is. So right now, it's not as good as I think it is. I got to go get ready for Tennessee now. And, they just won an overtime game against Georgia, so they're going to be playing with a ton of confidence. So those are kind of the things that, just for me, more importantly, is just trying to stay consistent in my preparation and my execution.
Texas started 7 of 10 from deep in 3 of their next.
Is that good?
3 of their next 14. Did you guys change anything on defense, or did they just kind of finally cool off?
No, we stuck with at halftime. I was like, maybe we should blitz the ball screen. I'm like, forget that. They're not going to keep making these shots. They're just not. You got to play. I'm an analytics guy. You got to play the numbers, and for the most part, they're gonna serve you well. And sure enough, they did. Now. Heidi, you can't let him get any because he shoots 50%. But, we knew that Swain was going to miss his. Pope cooled down and Mark missed a bunch of his. So, we talked about making some adjustments, but man, at some point they had to cool off, and sure enough they did. I thought we did a better job in transition of not. We did a better job. Well, part of it was because when you make shots, you can get matched up in transition. Our good offense led to better defense because we were able to set our defense. In the first half, we were in transition a lot because we had taken bad shots, and they got some clean ones because we didn't have matchups. So I think our good offense led to better defense in the second half.
Yeah, going off of that, I know you were very focused on stopping them from 2 because that's what they're really good at. They only had 8 makes the rim all game. Just how big was that for y'all to keep them out of the paint, because that's usually the area where they thrive on offense?
Yeah, in the second half they did a better job of going to Vokatitis and getting him easy ones around the rim. But I thought our 2-point defense was pretty good for the most part. 14 made 2s in the game. I think they're in their wins, they're making like 20, I think. So it was important that we ran them off the line. If they made 14 twos, like I want to say like 8 of them were like either contested like mid ranges or push shots around the rim. They weren't layups. So we're doing a better job of not giving up layups at the rim, and that's been really important for us.
Coach, you mentioned Texas having to cool off. You feel like at this team, or that sometime this team was going to have to heat up. Prior to tonight, in the win streak, your team was 9 of 51 from 3. Going into this game, how do you still instill confidence in this team from behind the three-point line, even when they're not necessarily falling in some of these big-time games?
Just keep shooting good shots. It's not something like we really talk about, because if we go 3 for 18 and we take 18 good ones, I'm not going to stop shooting threes because we're not shooting a good percentage. Now, people may read that and be like, what in the world is he talking about? But I know my team, and I know that, Kevin Overton is a career, damn near 40% three-point shooter. Elijah, before this rough stretch, was shooting 58% in his previous 5 games. He made a big one tonight on a drive draw dish from Key. And then obviously Keyshawn Hall is starting to heat up. So, Tahad continues to struggle. He's probably shooting like 18% in conference play from 3. And we're still, 14-7, 5-3. If he can, find a way to flip a switch, and here's the deal, I need him to continue to shoot those shots, because once they start going down, things can change for us. And, we're gonna stay consistent with what we're doing, shots will fall when they need to.
There were a couple times specifically in the first half where it looked like Murph was kind of trying to get his teammates on the court composed when things weren't going the way that y'all wanted them to. How important and how beneficial has his experience in the SEC been when y'all are in, sticky situations, tough games, or trying to come back from a bigger deficit?
He's really emerged, Taylor, as a leader. And, part of it is, he's healthy now, so I think our guys are responding more to him because he's not, out with injuries as much. Guys listen to what Murph has to say. And it's all really constructive, and it's really positive, and it's stuff that our guys need to hear. Because sometimes when we get in those tough spots, there can be some negative talk in huddles. That's just what happens with young men like that. Murph does a really good job of just, trying to stay positive, stay on target, stay on task. And part of it is, like you said, he's had experience in this league. Murph didn't have a great offensive game, but I thought he played his ass off for the most part, and battled with Vocatitis down there at 5, big rebounds in the game, and just continues to do the things that we ask him to do for us to win. We've won 5 out of 6, 4 straight because of his production and his just energy and his leadership. So we got to keep that going.
Coach, kind of in line with Taylor's question, it felt like Vocatitis was really making the game physical, bringing a physical game to you guys. In the moment, the guys were kind of responding to that physicality. How are you managing the emotions of these teams when you find yourself in the tournament? Some guy gives a guy elbow, and then suddenly, you're in a situation where you need your guys to keep their cool here. Are you teaching them about those moments, in times like this?
Yeah, I think our guys have done a really good job of just playing physically, in SEC play. We've outscored every team in the paint. I don't know if we did tonight. Nope. Dang it. But 7 out of 8, we've outscored teams in the paint. So but we got 29 free throws, so we did outscore them in the paint. We did a really good. Our guys seek out physicality, which it's something I was worried about early in the year. I didn't know if we had that, but it's kind of become our MO, and that's something that we can't shy away from. So I thought our guys did a good job of staying composed. He's a monster down there, and there's a reason why he drew 11 fouls tonight. Holy crap. So he leads the country in fouls drawn in a 40-minute game. So his number just went up, right? There's a reason why he does such a good job in those situations. And our guys, for the most part, did a good job of not letting it bother him, and just kind of getting on to the next play and just kept throwing punches. And ultimately, I think it kind of wore them down, and we were able to, find a way to close the game out. So thanks, guys.